Just tell me when.
Good evening and happy Wednesday. Before you're like panicking, yes, tonight's episode is on a Wednesday. That's because my special guest had a situation arise last night and we had to adapt on the fly because we're amazing, entrepreneurially minded people like that. And I wanted to give her time on this episode, and she's a very important person to me. So we are getting ready to kick off episode 3 of season 3 of the Open Heart Collective. I am the host or curator of this particular series. My name is Ryan Block. I'm excited to be here tonight. My guest this evening is the one, the only Shauna, aka Mrs. Haste and Hustle. Without any further ado, Shauna, say hello and introduce yourself before we get into the flow of the conversation.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you everyone for listening. I'm really excited to be here, and yes, I'm sorry about my situation, and I hope you all don't mind switching your evening for me. So I appreciate it.
Not at all. So the how this show works, because Shauna is really new to this and hasn't seen a lot of it. So we're broadcasting live on Facebook right now. So anybody who tunes in is going to be able to interact with us. If nobody tunes in, they can catch us in the replay, and then the video lives in Facebook. But because we're not a one-dimensional universe anymore, I don't just keep it on one platform. Typically, we're also broadcasting live on Instagram at the same time to give it a little bit more immediate direct engagement. But in the instance of tonight, we're just going Facebook. So what we do from here is Sunday night, at the end of the week, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to take the video from Facebook, and then I'm going to upload it to YouTube. So all you YouTube fanatics out there, the video will be available on YouTube on Sunday. But I know there's a mass quantity of people who love the audio, right? So for those audio listeners, we have the audio from this, and then Friday's episode will be available on all podcast streaming platforms everywhere Sunday. So without any further delay, it's been a good day for me. So I'm kind of flying really high at the moment as I drink tea out of my Baymax coffee mug.
That's awesome.
Anyways, so the show came to be in March, right? Because we don't talk about mental health or mental health struggles enough, right? We're in this world where we're reacting to mental health. We're not being proactive. We're in this world of constantly being on the offense, always doing things, hustling, all that kind of stuff, right? But one thing that we haven't been on the proactive about the hustle for is our mental health and the mental health in the community of people that surround us. Mm-hmm. So if nobody's having these conversations, I figured my voice is pretty freaking loud that I'd start having these conversations. But, and this is important, any mental health stories isn't really complete if we only just talk about the struggles or just talk about the darkness, right? So in a few minutes, we'll get into your story and get to know you a little bit more. That's phase number 1 of this conversation. Phase 2 is where we talk about what are some of those obstacles you've had to face and what did you do to overcome them? And then last, but certainly not least, and this is the important part, we have to be talking about what's exciting right now in our world, right? We have to talk about not just the darkness, but what happens when you get past the darkness, because we got to inspire and give hope, because there's not enough people being a light in the dark. So this gives us the ability to be that and to have those conversations, and allow us in this community to have safe places to have these types of conversations, because I feel we need to have these conversations more, and surely more often than we have been in the past. So I'm tired of losing people who inspire me. So I figured the only way to do that was to start the conversation. So without any further delay, Shauna, I'd love to hear your story.
Wow. All right. Well, yeah, I think your mission is
34 episodes of this. I think I've got it down.
You've got it down. Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. Okay, so I started out actually in science and engineering, and worked in that field for a while. And about 10 years ago, I decided, not even, yeah, about 10, a little less than 10 years ago, I decided to make the flip, because I realized I'd tried to just go into what was marketable and not really what I was passionate about. And so I did. I made the flip, and I went back to school and I studied event management and business, and then I worked for the college and in events, and then I started to build out my own business. And building out a business is a very unique and lonely adventure.
We talked about this off air, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, I worked from home. I was planning people's events. I was doing large events, like 500 to 1,000 people conferences worldwide, and then incentive trips, again, worldwide. So it was exciting to the outside world, and it was certainly exciting to me too. But, I spent, most events are planned 90% on paper before you ever see a person almost, And so, again, it was just very lonely. And there's a lot of stress around that. And you're working with clients and you have a lot of deadlines. And it was very hard to always be alone.
Right.
So then, but it was good. It was not terrible. And I was still figuring out how to do everything, right? How do I charge? How do I make this work? And then about 3 years ago, I decided that I wanted to initiate a project that I was just very passionate about. So I'd been following Gary Vaynerchuk for a while, and really loved his stuff, and loved who he was and his message. And I decided that I need to do an event with him here in Canada. We don't have as many events like you all do in America. So I thought, let's try and bring him here and do something really wonderful for the entrepreneurs that are in this area, because typically entrepreneurs and business people are traveling to the States to these huge events.
Right.
And they're spending a few $1,000s and, time and energy and everything to go to these big events. And I thought, that's not very conducive to an early stage entrepreneur. And it's
Preach.
Yeah. So who can do that, right? So I'm like, if we bring them here, they will come, sort of. I'm dating myself. Anyway, so I thought, let's do it. So I did. I just literally set out to do it. Started on Super Bowl Sunday of 2016. And I had Gary booked within 2 months of that date. And then we were off to the races, seeking sponsorship and everything. And so the problem was that I had always trained as an event planner, but not a producer. And so, I ended up, taking on this producer role, but not necessarily recognizing the difference until it was a bit too late. And the difference being that you're responsible to sell everything. Sell the sponsorship, sell the tickets, sell the vendor space, whatever, right?
Which again, when you're on your own, is a very lonely thing. Exactly.
So it's very lonely all the time. And you're also alone in the stress of it. So right. I knew what I needed to, bring in, and I knew the payments that were coming out, and I knew the people that were relying on me, and I knew I knew all the balls I was dropping. And right. I think at the end of the day, the event did go off and it went really well. We had some pretty significant challenges in the back end, very significant. But as a guest, no one would have known.
Right.
It did go off effortlessly, and I do have to give a lot of credit to my team because they were phenomenal in that. What ended up happening is I ended up, just taking a huge financial hit off that event. And huge.
First year events, I know all that too well.
I know
that all too well.
I know. So it was that experience became very, very lonely and so stressful, because then all of a sudden I'm on the hook for all this money that I didn't have, and I didn't know what I was going to do. Now, thankfully, Gary was generous enough to offer to come back and do another event with me because he liked it so much, I guess. And he was just so kind to me. And we ended up doing another event and reconciling that, which was great. But in the interim, he gave me the opportunity, in a sense. He said, I'll come back and do another event with you. But that still requires me taking all that time and energy and effort and putting on another event. And it's still, so he gave me an opportunity, but he didn't, not a gift. So the gift was the opportunity, but I still had to work really, really hard for that. Right. And I still had to put my neck on the line again, which, I still had a lot of scar tissue from that. and I had to, I had to really and it was even lonelier this time because I was dealing with the stress of everything that had happened, and I didn't have a team anymore because I couldn't afford to pay for a team, and I couldn't afford all the things that I had, mismanaged the first year, and so I was like, you know what, I ended up doing it not all alone, because by the end I had some great volunteers, but yeah, that was a very lonely process, and it generated enough, it was great. It ended up turning out really wonderfully, and I'm very lucky.
Right.
But through all that, I just recognized the value of people in my life. I just started reaching out to people when I was really in the sort of pit of despair right after the event, because I was so exhausted and so stressed, and really I didn't know how I was going to suddenly just pay off all this debt that I acquired, right? And so I was like, what am I going to do? So it was pretty dark. But what I did is I just started reaching out to people I didn't even know. I reached out to a guy who I read about in Entrepreneur magazine. I just liked his story, and I'm like, I wonder if he'll talk to me. And I did. I just randomly found him on LinkedIn, messaged him, and he got on an hour-long phone call with me,
LinkedIn for the win again.
Yes, exactly. And so that sort of situation happened over and over again. And I found myself seeking out those conversations with, professionals. And what I found is I heard the same story over and over again is, Shauna, you're not alone. Everyone's gone through something like this. And some of them to even a greater degree. And so I just recognized that, there's so much power in human connection. And the problem is that so many of us don't take the opportunity to reach out for it when we need it. And we forget. I mean, it's just sort of another chore almost, right? But once you start doing it, it does really, really help. And you don't have to reach out to strangers. You can reach out to friends. But for me, that was a lifesaver, And so just it generated so much value in my life. And it's still now one of my key indicators for me. When I'm getting really low, I can always say, I haven't really spent a lot of time with, people who elevate me. And it's funny because I went down to do an interview with Gary in New York last September. I think it was September. Yeah. And he said that to me. He's like, you have to, keep people close that are, that encourage you and build you up, and let everyone else go. He said it He said it in a much more crass way, but I'm going to...
Well, that's scary.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it was good. Anyway, so that's my story.
That's part of your story.
Yeah.
I liked that part. And I knew a little bit about that part already. But, and I appreciate kind of going back that last 5-10 years of, all right, we did this didn't work. I had these struggles and I had to overcome them with this. And then a little bit into what's going on right now, but what in life kind of led you to where you are now? So, and I'll give an example. Mm-hmm. So me, I've always been a very large mental health advocate, but up until about 10, 12 years ago, I really didn't understand why I was. Because I struggled a lot with depression and anxiety and self-harm when I was growing up. And for no other reason other than the fact that I felt alone and that nobody gave a shit, and that it was hard and life sucked and nobody gave it, and nobody was wanting to be close. Parents went through a divorce, all that kind of stuff. So, but it was my last suicide attempt, close to 18 years ago now, that for me was what was the catalyst, really, because I was so just done. And then to survive something as traumatic as that, with literally no scars. And then to recall that several years later is what really gave me the power to jump into this and have these conversations. Because in order to really understand, it's like when you're working with a client, right? In order to understand their goals and objectives and where they want to go in life or with a particular project, you first need to understand where they're coming from so you have that baseline, right? So I want to know a little bit more about Shauna. I'll pry, but I won't pry too much. But keep in mind, this is a safe place. And if you feel like you want to share more, this is the community and the place to do it. Because everybody has those, whether it be a childhood issue or just the fear of not fitting in, that to the entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs. I mean, through these last 3 weeks, including this week, or the first 2 weeks of this new season, I've had some rather strong female entrepreneurs on this show. I mean, from Ashley Horner, who kicked off the season 3, and then Lila Smith on Friday, yourself tonight, and then we've got Grace Presley coming on Friday. The reason why I wanted to bring on season 3 with a strong female lead is because I don't think I address a lot of men's mental health in the first 2 seasons, but that's just because a lot of my colleagues were like, oh yeah, I'll get on and talk. But like bringing in strong female entrepreneurs who have accomplished a lot was important to me, because there's a lot of female entrepreneurs and female leaders who are feeling like their opinions around mental health aren't being given attention. And I want this to be an all-inclusive platform, and very much so an all-inclusive community. So if you feel you want to share more, I compel you to do so, because this is the platform and the place to do so. If not, and I pry too much, you can tell me to go to hell, and I'm okay with that as well.
Well, I won't do that.
And plus, this is not the Ryan Block show. This is the guest show. I just happen to be able to be the one to curate all of it. So, but I could talk ad nauseum, so I'm just going to let you kind of.
Okay, well,
I'm passing the mic.
I don't want to be a disappointment. I mean,
But hey, there's no disappointment in this space.
I'm just kidding. I don't have a significant trauma that I can, you know what I mean? It's not like I've had any major trauma in my life or anything that I could point to and say, yeah, I'm very blessed. I do see that as something, great. But at the same time, I think sometimes people like myself who, you go and hear all these people's stories, and there's so much. People have had a lot of trauma, and people have had a lot of challenges throughout their lives. And and I think sometimes we forget that just because you have trauma doesn't mean you haven't experienced challenges.
And that's where I was leading to.
Okay.
So keep going.
Okay, good. So, so I mean, I look at, I had a really wonderful life growing up and happy family. And, for the most part, I mean, we were probably as screwed up as any other people, but nothing out of the ordinary of screwed upness. It was pretty happy, and just sort of did normal things. But I think, I had pretty strict high demands. Like I had high demands to do really well in school and go on and get post-secondary education. And, like I say, go on into these really highly marketable positions and follow in my parents' footsteps that way. And so that caused a lot of stress on me all the time.
Being the offspring of a high performer is a stressful thing.
I know. And my mother's particularly high performing. And
what does your mother do, if you don't mind me asking?
She was a hospital administrator.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know that life.
Yeah. So she, like she would, and to this day, my mom is 75 years old and she probably still outperforms me on a day-to-day basis. Like, this is like, I have a very high ball to hit, or high bar to hit. So I don't know. I think that certainly caused a lot of stress. But I mean, when I got older, though, and I was in school, I dealt with like serious anxiety. So, like to the point where I couldn't even get in an elevator.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
keep going.
And it was a real challenge because I was studying mining engineering. So, when you go into,
why that choice? Man, I'm just curious.
I loved it, actually. I loved geology, and I loved all this.
My grandfather was a professor of geology, so we have that in common.
Oh, interesting. So I was living way up north, and I was doing, interesting research and whatnot. But I would get I would have panic attacks in our labs because there was no windows and the doors would be closed, and then like intense like smells and stuff would cause me stress. And so there was that. Sometimes there was that, and so I would have to leave, and I would get up these like insane like panic attacks just from that. And it seems so irrational to me even now, and to a rational person, but I couldn't break myself of it, And I ended up having to leave a semester early at one point and then go back. And I literally moved home. And it's 5 hours away from here. And I moved home and didn't go back for another 2 years. And so it was a real challenge. And I think, it really disappointed. Like, so then, all those feelings of like, oh, I'm a disappointment. I can't meet the standards that have been set for me. I can't do what I'm supposed to do. And I don't know. That was hard, really hard on me. And so that was certainly something that I, couldn't really, really overcome for quite a long time.
What did you do to overcome it?
It's funny. I don't know if I am fully. I don't, like, even today, actually, I went to a meeting in this old building in Toronto, and I'm just so claustrophobic. That's what it is. And so I stood there, and this little elevator comes, and I got in, and then I got out, and then I got in, and then I got out. And I was like, oh my God, like, what is wrong with me? Like, I can't even do this. And yet, I'm over in Singapore, and I'm going up to the 97th floor or something, like some crazy hotel, and it doesn't bother me, but like these little tiny old school ones do. Anyway, and so I'm not fully, I just certainly have kind of changed some of my, the way I kind of handle it. So my doctor actually said to me, he's like, imagine the worst case scenario when you're in that. Like, what is the worst case scenario that you can imagine that you think is happening? And then just pretend like it's happening. So that's what I would do. And that sometimes works. Sometimes it just made it worse. But I think it was also just doing it. Like, flying. Like, now I'm practically in the air more than I'm on the ground. And so, I used to get very claustrophobic in planes, and now I don't. I used to get more claustrophobic in elevators, and now I don't, because in my line of work, I'm constantly in tall buildings and constantly in these smaller spaces. But if one did suddenly get stuck, I would not be pleased. You don't want to be with me if that happens. Like, I don't know. Like, so anyway, I guess that's really the depth of it. It's nothing too dramatic, I guess, but
no, but that makes sense, because
it affected my life.
Right, and not every story is heavily traumatic, but it's your story, and it's what you've done in order to get past it, and what you do on a continual basis to push yourself through those moments that would cause anxiety, like getting off the elevator 3 times only to enter it back on a 4th. Those types of things.
I'm always better if someone's with me. I actually waited for these guys who were outside smoking. I'm like, oh, good, they're coming back in. So it's not always as I'm not always as successful at overcoming it as I seem. But I think the real trick for me was just doing it, just sucking it up and doing it. But
that's sometimes that's what it needs, right? Like, you need to take those 12 steps only to take 6 back, to take 12 more forward. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, I mean, and I've said this in the past, a lot of mental health all stems from anxiety, right? We get anxious about certain things, and it's that anxiety it's that anxiousness and anxiety that leads towards potentially more severe situations, whether that be alcoholism, eating disorders, depression, suicide, anything. And in the world that we live in, there's so much being thrown at us at any given time that it's like,
I know.
I don't really know what I'm going to do here.
It's the stimulus. I know. Hey, Ryan, remember how I told you how I like flew in because I was stuck in traffic and all this stuff? Uh-huh. And I flew into this place and I just stopped to plug in, and I'm in a coffee shop and I just have to plug my computer in. Just give me, can I just?
You're good. You're good.
1 sec. I'm sorry.
You're good. All right. So while Shauna's plugging her computer and we get this conversation back online, I wanted to take a brief moment to again say thank you to everybody who is a part of this community on a daily and weekly basis. It really does truly mean the world to me. I mean, guys, I know time is valuable, and we all have the ability to invest our time. So I'm glad that you guys invest your time with this show. And Shauna's back.
So sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're good. I have the ability to ad-lib, so it's all good. Okay, anyways, so we're about through the halfway point, just past the halfway point. And this is about the time where I want to make sure that those in the community know that we are resources. Myself in particular, I make myself available because it's important for me. And I know that when I was struggling and people made themselves available to me, that I truly valued that. So I want to be that and champion that moving forward into the new year. But if you are struggling, please, 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 and I cannot emphasize that enough, reach out and ask for help.
Yep. There's so many great resources out there now too, that I think it doesn't even take much to look. Like, just Google it. Like, there's resources, but also people. I mean, unless you want people to reach to you.
Well, I mean, I don't care if people reach out to me. I mean, I want to make myself available if they feel the desire to do so. Mm-hmm. But it's more so about the availability and access to the resources. Mm-hmm. So there are millions of resources in this world, I'm sure. The problem is there's millions of resources out there in this world, I'm sure. And like I said, if all mental health stems from some level of an underlying anxiety, when we go to Google and we type in depression, and I know because I've done this, the amount of search results that you get back are ridiculous. So if you are a person who is struggling with anxiety or depression and you type in depression, you're going to get 80 million search results, right? Because that's how Google works. So you see those 80 million search results and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then you don't act, right? Because too many choices is oftentimes just as big of an issue as not enough choices. Yeah. So one of the things we're working on, and Shauna, you and I have talked about this in the past, in our previous conversations, we're getting this thing turned into an app. I'm still figuring it out. But what we're going to do is we're going to take all of these global resources that exist. Mm-hmm. And those who are struggling, guess what? Just download the app and you literally type in what you're struggling with. And based on what you're struggling with and where you are in the world, we're going to be able to direct those resources to you. Those resources that are not 100 hours away, that are not a 10-hour drive, that are not always most accessible, right? Because there's a lot of therapists and there's a lot of this and there's a lot of that. And then there's the AFSPs and the all these organizations and all these acronyms.
And lots of snake oil.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. There's not a lot of these resources that are properly vetted. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do all that work for you. And literally all you're going to have to do is type in to the box what it is that you're struggling with. But that obviously takes an army to pull off. Mm-hmm. I've got the tech, working on the financing, but we need the resources. We need to know what is available in each of these communities around the world, because I don't care where you are. I want to be able to provide a resource, because this is how we change the world. This is how we unify our voice. And that's the entire premise around this show. Is my story and what I've gone through in my life may not help you, may not resonate with you, but your story is going to help someone else and resonate with someone else. So it's about pulling together the community. It's about a team of people. It's about creating those safe cultures for us to share our stories, so that we don't have to read about the Mac Millers and the Chester Benningtons and the Anthony Bourdains and Kate Spades of the world. Yeah. And that we don't have to see the news stories of the hundreds of thousands of people around the world every single day, every single year that we lose, that we don't even read about. Or God forbid, the big tragedies, the big tragic circumstances where if there was proper mental health, that could have been avoided. Mm-hmm. Being a dad, I want to see my kids grow up in a safe world, as safe as is humanly possible. And I will not rest. Hell, I'm sick today and still wanting to commit to this show, because this is how important this conversation is, and how important these conversations will continue to be. And as I've said before, and I'll say again, I'm going to have these conversations, and this show is going to continue until I no longer have a voice. And then I'm going to pay somebody to do it for me, because it's that critical that we be having these conversations and doing it at a larger scale.
I totally agree.
So, all right, we talked a little bit about the story, the struggle, what you did to overcome it, which is the pragmatic act of just doing it, right? Just, all right, it hurts. Ouch. Let's keep pushing forward. And then the pain gets a little bit less. And then inevitably you just build up a strength. This is a prime example. Last night, my wife and I were both sick because my son got us sick. But I was like, I still had to commit to the workout, right? Because I'm still on mission 35. I'm trying to get into my best health. And obviously a lot of that is physical. So I still did 30 minutes on the recumbent bike because it's 25 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit out here. That shit's cold and I'm not running outside. She's like, how can you do this? I can barely breathe. I'm like, neither can I. But I still have to do it.
Yep.
Like when we get off this, I'm going to go upstairs and work out because I've got to do it. Yes, it hurts. And yes, I'd rather just be curled up and Netflixing, but like I can't. I got shit to do. So what's exciting with Shauna right now, which I know is a lot, Haste and Hustle Next, third version is coming up. We're obviously talking. I'm trying to help you guys out with that as much as I can. But like, what else is going on? What else is exciting?
Aside from that completely?
Just in life, what's going on? Obviously, I mean, you're a very multidimensional person with a lot of things happening at all times. I mean, there are a few people in the world busier than me, but I think you, my dear, are one of them.
Let's not go there. I tend to be very busy, but I don't want to glorify that because it's not really where I want to be. I'm trying to simplify. I took some time this summer to really evaluate where I wanted my business to go, and so I got super clear what I wanted, because Haste and Hustle had, we grew that 175% in 1 year over the first year. And that's incredible. It's a great problem to have, but it's also exhausting and stressful, and, and it's a big responsibility because suddenly I have this beautiful community of people and I hate the idea of letting them down. And in some ways we have at times, and others, most. And so I'm like, okay, how do I really take this forward and fulfill the mission of my company, and which is to serve and support entrepreneurs. So I took some time this summer to get really clear on that, and so now I am, and we're building out a whole division of it. So anyway, I'm not going to go into that, but I'm just taking.
I mean, you could. We've got like 17 minutes left, so I mean, you're good.
Well, no. So I mean, we're building it out into a media publishing company, and we're really trying to make it something where people can go to access information and resources and support and find their community of like-minded entrepreneurs.
Right.
So that's really the long and short of it. And it's just, for me, I took a blank whiteboard in the summer and I put the Haste and Hustle community. I wrote those words out and I put it right in the center of the whiteboard. And I was like, how do I build around this? Like, these are my people. I need to figure out how I serve and support them. So we just built it that's more sustainable than one event a year. So so that's what we're doing. We're building out this website and a bunch of services. And so that's great. It's going to launch pretty soon. And then I'm working on the event.
I can't wait.
Yeah, the event, actually, I got some great news today, so I can't share it yet, but
I was all excited about a news premiere.
It's about our speakers, so I'm pretty excited.
I'm kind of on the inside loop because of our boy Misha, but
oh, are you? I don't even think he knows this information.
Okay, well, I mean, obviously he keeps me in the loop on everything because he's just amazing like that. I think I may know, but I don't definitively understand. We'll talk off air.
Yeah. So pretty friggin' excited. Probably the most excited I've ever been. And so I'm trying to, but in my personal life, I'm just trying to keep it a little bit more simple because, I have this 16-year-old son who I recognize is now almost at that age where, we're coming to the end of that time in his life where he's going to be around all the time.
Right.
And it's already starting to become kind of like, he's working and he's now a driver and, so I'm trying to really, and my time with him is the most important time in my life. I will cancel anything for him. And so I'm trying to make sure that he remains that priority right to I'm not going to say the bitter end because it's not like parenting's over at 18.
Until the change.
Yeah, until that really transition sort of takes mass effect. And we're just trying to do some traveling, and he and I love to travel together and just spend time and really focus on that. I have a ailing father and
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's tricky. My dad's pretty old. So we're just trying to spend time with him and make sure my mom stays healthy while she's kind of supporting him, and and just doing just keeping my life very light. I'm fairly simple in my life. I don't have very extraordinary taste, although I end up doing extraordinary things because wonderful experiences seem to come into my life. I don't really know how. People are always asking me this, and I don't know how. I guess it's just an attraction thing. I don't know, but by my nature, I'm quite simple. I'm quite happy to just putter around the house and do things on the weekends, and I love that, and I love going to places on our trips where it's not very commercial. Like, I don't really like Disney World or theme parks. I like going to, like, I don't know, the beach in Maui or something, where we're not, hiking in Newfoundland and I don't know, that sort of thing, if we can. So, so I'm just trying to keep it simple as much as possible and just focus on staying really clear and focused on my company, because for so long, I think I was sort of chasing, like shiny objects, or shiny things, making sure. And now I'm like so clear on my business and I'm so happy and I feel so committed to the vision and the mission and the community and making it and getting it right. And that's where I'm at.
I love that. I mean, I'm a dad too. I've got two little ones, a 9 and an 8-year-old.
Oh yeah.
And like my weekends are just slammed because they're both super active. I mean, it was football during the summer and into the fall, and now we're back into gymnastics and taekwondo and ninja class and all that. Like,
it's crazy. Noah's on 2 hockey teams.
Because one's just not enough.
I know. And he's in midget, so like the games are at like 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, we were talking the other night at 1.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. And I was like, it's so late. Like, it goes till, and the practices go from like 9:30 till 11. Yeah. And it's like,
I understand that parent life is rough sometimes.
Yeah.
But it allows us to put more things into perspective than most entrepreneurs who don't have kids are, because I have a feeling you're kind of a similar way to me, where you're not doing this for you.
Mm-mm.
Like, I mean, you're doing it because you enjoy it. Yeah. But you're doing this for a legacy. Mm-hmm. You're doing this for something for him down the road. Like, I'm building, my son and I think we're launching it in January, only because the summer was madness and we didn't get a chance to launch it. Mm-hmm. But we're launching a sneaker cleaning company in January. So that's going to be like the supplies and stuff like that are going to be like my Christmas presents to him. But like, no, I mean, we've got the business model, $5 plus shipping. We're clean them. And half of it.
Noah's shoes too?
Yeah.
You have to figure one thing out. I put Noah's shoes through the wash the other day, like literally in the washing machine, because they stunk so bad. They're his gym shoes. And they smelled so bad, like I couldn't even have them in the house. Like I had to keep them out. I'm like, what did you do to these? Like, I put them through the wash twice. Still smelled a bit. I was like,
there's ways. We're figuring it out.
All right, we'll talk offline.
But I mean, guys, this is real life. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why we do these conversations raw and in the moment. Mm-hmm. I mean, you asked me a question the other night. Well, do you do anything pre-recorded? And this is why we don't. Mm-hmm. Because if we pre-record it, we lose a little bit of the vision, right? Because we're real humans having a real conversation about real life,
right?
And that's why everything is unedited. Mm-hmm. I edit absolutely nothing, mm-hmm. because who are we, or more or less who am I, to dictate where the person who is inevitably going to hear this or be a part of this take value?
Right.
It's them. It's on them to take value. That's why I say I'm a curator, not a creator. Mm-hmm. So, Shauna, if somebody were to try to get a hold of you, where is the best place they can find you?
Well, LinkedIn, Shauna Arnott, or that's probably the best, or on Instagram, Shauna Claire 1. Yep. Yeah, and I'm all over the place. I'm on Twitter, nice. But I don't go on as much.
I'm not on Twitter as much either. Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate you making the time for this to be a priority for you. I have a feeling this is one of only many conversations we're yet to have. So I have a feeling there's a lot of bright things in both of our futures, and I'm excited by that. Yeah. So as we get ready to wrap up, I've got this little mindset mantra thing that I like to say, and I'm actually talking with Misha. I like calling him Misha because there's too many mics in my world already. That him and I are going to probably put on a t-shirt one of these days, because why not? But it is as follows. So number 1 is be happy, right? Number 2 is have fun. And number 3 is hustle your ass off, because everything in life takes work. But, and that's a very large emphasis on the but, there is no amount of hustle on the planet that will bring you happiness or fun. So it's imperative that you have those two in your world first. And then, to all us entrepreneurs out there, to all the hustlers, to all the people that are waking up every day. Oh, we lost Shauna. Oops. So thank you. So to that was weird. I wonder if their computer died. Or connection issue. Things happen. So to all the friends and colleagues out there, remember to take time to breathe, because that's important too. Anyways, guys, we'll be back on Friday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, with Grace Presley, writer, author, educator, and a myriad of other things. We'll be back on Friday with Grace, so I hope you guys can tune in then. In the meantime, see you guys in the next one. Bye.